What's cracking, y'all? It's me, Quin the Movie Guy here, and what a better way to start off the Halloween season than check my candy for nefarious forms of instruments. We got the usual razor blades, the funny powder, and most importantly, the very, very fun powder. Now y'all might be asking, Quin, why go through all this trouble when you don't even have kids? To that I say, virgins are guaranteed a lifetime supply of candy, and most importantly, the Halloween spirit. So why don't you go mind your own fucking business, or I'll be putting a used condom inside your treat bag.
Five Nights at Freddy's is the highly awaited and highly anticipated video game adaptation based on the video game franchise of the same name, created by Scott Cawthon, who is also one of the leading producers of this film, along with Jason Blum. The movie was also directed by Blum and stars Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Lail, Piper Rubio, and Matthew Lillard. It follows a troubled security guard as he begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While spending his first night on the job, he realizes the night shift at Freddy's won't be so easy to make through. For 8 solid years, this movie was constantly living in the back of my mind, forced to remain there, collecting cobwebs of the like and dust forming across the particles in the air. There's no denying that loyal fans of the games, including myself, have been waiting for any leading information about this adaptation's development. For the years that continued on, and having played through 4 iconic games in the entire franchise, it seemed almost like the dream of having a FNAF movie was fading, and fading fast. And then came along Jason Blum, the CEO of Blumhouse Productions. Now there's no denying as well that this studio was in charge of producing some notable projects that held the pioneer for the horror genre. Well, almost all of them. It's because of this guy some semblance of hope was able to seep out through the cracks of what felt like an eternity, and then BAM! I'm more than glad to say that this movie is finally here, and while it still has some form of potential, there's still a lot of things that I wish they could have done differently that could very well be reserved for future installments.
Being a longtime fan of the series in its early days, and in this context, the first game, this movie was somehow able to capture the integrity and what made the first game stand out among the rest of the horror games at the time. And this leads me to the absolute standout in this adaptation: the setting and the animatronics. Jason Blum and the crew definitely did their research, and with each detail, no matter how little or how small, I felt like it was straight out of the game. I mean, Christ almighty, it didn't take long before I saw that iconic fan, and then I immediately went and go, yeah, that's so lore accurate. I don't know if it was just me, but it felt like I was back to my 2014 self, losing his shit, progressing through the different nights, and discovering the lore that's more than it was letting on.
And how could I forget the animatronics? Holy fucking shit, this was absolute textbook, my dudes. I was getting so worried that they were gonna miss the mark with this one because each design of the animatronics in the game were so iconic, and it would be a shame if any major studio even thought about twisting the screws a little further at the cost of accuracy. But thankfully, a god exists, and we were able to be treated with a cast of characters that's as accurate as a Chuck E. Cheese pizza being served fresh to their customers. And speaking of which, if it wasn't obvious enough, the animatronics in the game were heavily inspired by Chuck E. Cheese and other entertainment establishments like it. Part of what made the original game so iconic to this very day is how genuinely uncanny these cast of characters are. Like, you can hardly grasp the idea of who would even think about keeping those things up and running under such harsh conditions, let alone setting up an algorithm for it to freely roam at night. But I digress. Unfortunately, while this adaptation carried on a box of fan service slices, there are some parts of it that were left cold. Now, not to give any flack for the performance, but Josh Hutcherson's portrayal of Mike was undoubtedly one of the weakest parts, and every time his character presented himself on screen, I was trying so hard to be invested, but it was his wooden performance that affected it in the process. I understand that they were trying to paint this man as a troubled individual who has a rather complicated relationship with newcomer Piper Rubio's Abby, who did a really good job balancing out her chemistry with Hutcherson's conflicted portrayal of Mike. But it doesn't hurt to show a little bit of emotion now and then, unless this may be the most accurate portrayal of an individual going through life with minimum wage. Elizabeth Lail's Vanessa. While there are certain levels to this character that have yet to be delved into, I couldn't deny that she definitely worked with what she could in this. Coming off of Netflix's You, her performance, most especially her chemistry with Mike, was also a highlight for me, because in the midst of the madness that the plot falls over on top of Hutcherson's shoulder, it was Lail's character that served as the bouncing point not just for him, but also for her own character character arc.
One of the offenders of all time for this movie was the fact that they tried to jam in just as much lore as they possibly could in such a limited runtime. Don't get me wrong, there's no denying that the lore in these games were what made it so undeniably timeless. But if they could have just stuck the landing in certain key details, I would have probably called this one of the adaptations of all time. This fault is easily comparable to a scenario wherein a chef serves plain spaghetti noodles, but just as soon as the customer was about to send it back, the chef then decided to put in the spaghetti sauce, the meatballs, the shredded cheddar cheese on top at the last minute. It affected the plot to the point where it just felt kind of convoluted. But despite the faults that I've clearly verbalized, it doesn't completely affect the viewing experience of watching this movie in the slightest. This is by far one of the most enjoyable adaptations in such a long time. And as of speaking, this movie opened with $78 million and counting domestically. And if I were to be put into the perspective of these filmmakers, it's guaranteed to make more. So why stop there? The sequels preceding the first game have adaptation potential. And I, for one, cannot wait what the future holds for our animatronic friends. As a loyal supporter of the game since the very beginning, they've almost scratched the surface of what made the first game stand the test of time. If you're a longtime fan like myself, you will not be disappointed. And if you're just a casual enjoyer, it'll probably be a mixed bag for you.
Finally, checked through everything. Now I can treat my sweet tooth, baby. God damn it, I swear I'd pay my dues tomorrow.
Hello? Who goes there? Show yourself! Ah, shit.